So if you've been anywhere near the foodie side of social media within the last few years, you may have come across a set of memes portraying Italians absolutely losing their minds over people making Italian food the wrong way. Anyone asking if they can use cream of mushroom soup in carbonara, put cheese on their seafood pasta, eat chicken with their pasta, or break the pasta noodles before boiling becomes the latest butt of the joke. There's even a Twitter and a subreddit discussing these crimes against Italians. It looks like I'm taking food too seriously, but in reality, it's you not taking it seriously enough. Why you made this? Joke with your famous American dishes, but please stop to kill pasta in 100 different ways. People could seriously think this is pasta. Sad face. And one more thing that I repeat every time, but maybe you have pieces of sandwiches or french fries in your ears, you have to boil pasta in water, not in milk. And one pot pasta doesn't exist. Oh, this one's just a classic. So I'm going to Naples this Friday and I only have one question. Will I be killed if I order pineapple on my pizza? I hope so. Jokes aside, why is there this cultural phenomena around Italian food? While there are lots of American sushi restaurants, including Atlantic salmon and mayonnaise in their rolls, I have yet to see a Japanese sushi chef threaten them with the fires of hell. Lots of people decide not to include the red onion and capers on their lox and bagels, but have yet not been refused service by the Ashkenazi chef in the kitchen. Some Italian foods are even protected by the EU, and they have the most legal food protections of any European country. So why are Italians this mad? For starters, let's take a look at what Italian food is. Italy as a country didn't exist until 1871, but a unified culinary style did. And this existed since directly after the fall of the Roman Empire in 476. For this reason, for simplicity's sake, if there's any part of Italy that I'm discussing, and even if it's before 1871, I will just refer to it as Italy in this video. Breads and pasta throughout the regions were very similar, but local variations came from surrounding countries and from external factors such as access to the Silk trade route. Tomatoes were not yet part of Italian cuisine though, as they were not able to be grown in Italy yet. In fact, it was the Roman Empire that would have prevented the style that we recognize as Italian food today. Before the Romans, and what we see in Italy today is we see an emphasis on simple ingredients that are locally grown. The Romans, however, followed more of what we consider the European medieval style, which is heavily spiced, fermented, foreign, and using Greek bread makers. Uniquely, Romans also drank wine watered down because they thought it was barbarian to drink it straight up, and that probably would mean an Italian chef would appear in your kitchen and shout obscenities at you. But we fast forward to the 1700s, we now have tomatoes, and we now have a competing French cuisine, which caused a similar movement in Italy as it did in France. Local flavors, ingredients, local chefs were more prized than their foreign counterparts. Now, this is a very important piece of Italian culture that still exists to this day. Now, I myself am not Italian, so what I'm going to be speaking on in the rest of the video is from an outsider's perspective. But if you are from Italy and have some thoughts on what I'm covering in this video from here on out, I'd love to hear them. My parents and younger siblings do have an Italian foreign exchange student currently living with them, and I did fact check most of this with her and found out that she did have quite a visceral reaction to the thought of cheese on her seafood pasta. And now I say all this to point to a few things. The cultural view of cuisine in Italy has remained to be a part of Italy since before Italy was a unified Italy. And even though there have been changes to some ingredients over time and some outside influence, for much of Italian history, cuisine was the unifying factor for different regions of a culturally diverse people. Italian food also tends to be low on ingredients, meaning that one swap can become this ships of Theseus sort of moment. If I make cacio e pepe, which contains spaghetti, pecorino romano, and black pepper, and decide to switch the cheese with goat cheese and the black pepper to red pepper, can I really say it's still cacio e pepe? Likely not. But that is insulting for a reason to Italians. The best way I can describe this is that for most cultures, what unifies a people is a set of core common values. And then on the outside, you have social norms, dress styles, cuisine, and so on and so forth. For Italians, however, cuisine is part of that central unifying idea. Social norms and ideas are both tied to the food. This is different than, say, dining rules, which for most cultures is tied more to social norms than it is about the cuisine itself. Meaning, whether or not it is polite to snap your fingers for a waiter is more about the social norms of communication rather than what you are eating itself. In France, which fork you use for your dessert is more so about etiquette than it is about the actual dessert. For Italians, though, which type of pasta you're allowed to use with which sauce is directly tied to the rules of conduct. Meaning, ordering a cappuccino after 12 p.m. in Italy is the same as blaring on your horn in the Americas, or taking a seat before the host or hostess in the Netherlands. A lot of countries and cultures view food as more of a personal preference vehicle for delivering calories into your body. But for Italians, it's a ritual, and food rules are the social fabric binding Sicilians with Northern Italians. Sociologists and linguists still disagree whether culture influences language or when language influences culture, but we know that there is a change that one brings out in the other. There are over 26 different Italian words describing completely different areas in which to eat. And for comparison, by my counting, there's about 6 in English. Accidentally mess up a state in which a person from America is from, and they'll politely correct you. Incorrectly call an Italian a Sicilian, and watch them fume. But get that same person in the room with somebody who's actually from Sicily and watch them discuss their grandmother's recipes together. But tell a New Yorker that you prefer Chicago-style pizza, and that you will have a problem with. Now, all of this so far has been the positive side of Italian culture as it relates to food, but now we come to some of the negatives. Let's say you live in a country in the European Union that is not Italy, and let's say you'd like to make some authentic risotto. This uses Parmigiano Reggiano, a very specific protected Italian cheese. So for this dish, you either have to import the Parmigiano Reggiano, or you can use a generic Parmesan, which isn't legally Parmigiano Reggiano, for this dish. According to some food purists, you now have to decide to whether you take the cheaper route and use Parmesan, and then you've not made an authentic dish, or you absolutely have to go for the most expensive option and import that Parmigiano Reggiano in order to get that authentic dish. A US soap opera was even sued over an insult he made about Grana Padano cheese. That's how seriously Italians take their cheese. These protections for Italian goods don't exist in the US because it's outside of the European Union. So you can essentially buy counterfeit cheese from your local grocer, which some say means you cannot make an authentic Italian dish in the Americas. One thing that theoretically sets Italian cuisine apart from haute French cuisine, for instance, is that you're not eating the best Italian food only in a 5-star restaurant. You're eating it at home with what your grandmother has in her fridge and pantry at the time. But how can we make it so that that same leeway can be afforded to those outside of Italian culture and those who don't have access to very specific ingredients? I completely understand how it would be insulting for somebody to put ketchup on their bolognese, given the significance of cultural cuisine in Italy. But when there's a limited market for when you can purchase certain things, some small exceptions should be made. Italian cuisine is different from Italian-American cuisine for very specific reasons. That's to cater to an audience that views food rules as pliable, since their grandmothers were likely not adhering to the food rules that an Italian was, and to limit the amount that needs to be imported to America from Italy. A dry, salty cheese should be substituted for a dry, salty cheese, but maybe don't proudly post angel hair pasta and an Alfredo sauce on Instagram, unless you want an Italian to think that you're poking fun at their dear old grandmother. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more or follow my Instagram and Twitter.